political persuasion because she cares about this state. She cares about us. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, good Democrats of Taos, Michelle Lujan Grisham.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so very much. Now, I can barely see the folks in the back, but even if I was much taller, it still wouldn't, or on something higher. But can everybody hear me? Yep. Right on. And the second thing is, I'm sorry I was a little late. We've been traveling all day. I just flew back, before I introduce some other folks, last night from China. So if I seem a little dazed, it's because I think it's 6 in the morning there. So I'm not getting enough sleep. And the reason I was there is I was representing the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, because there's great interest in China about what our entrepreneurs are doing here, what they're doing in the country, what those relationships should look like. And it's a great place to talk about fairness and transparency and accountability in all trade issues with all foreign countries, not the least of which in this environment is China. So we had a direct and robust conversation, and nobody knows the risks, right, and the benefits better than New Mexicans, who are suffering through the worst economic environment, certainly of my lifetime, and recognize the value of productive partnerships so that we can grow our economy. But we do that in a way, never forgetting our democratic values and principles, so that it's fair, right? There's justice, there's credibility and predictability in what we do. And that starts right now on the campaign trail, and I'm so excited to be able to run for governor of this great state. So I'm actually I want to thank a couple of people. I'll forget folks. I just got to say hello to the fabulous governor from Taos Pueblo, Governor Romero. It's so lovely to see you again. Thank you for being here. I also want to thank former Chairman Ramon Trujillo, who's here. He's back there. Thank you very much, Batman, for being here. Former Judge Betty Martinez-Gonzalez, who when we got to talk on the phone, I told her, I've spent I'm a lawyer. And so lawyers aren't so popular, as you know. I think I'm less popular now as a congresswoman than I ever was as a lawyer in the national climate. Certainly I'm lucky to represent New Mexicans, because we have a great relationship, because I've never forgotten that I work for you. But neither has Betty. And when you're a local judge, it is tough, because you got to make tough decisions about really tough issues, and often issues that pick a side between families. And it says a lot about the quality of her work. And it also suggests to me that we can do good work and still take on the tough issues. I want to also thank former Commissioner Larry Sanchez, who's here, and Judy Cantu, Councilwoman, and I appreciate the honor to be here. And please, another round of applause for our incredible chairman. And then I also want to thank Lori Ortega from Penasco. You were there, then you're there. Her beautiful voice kept you here so that I could get to meet you and say hello. And I want to thank Nat for putting this together. And I want to thank Antonio and his lovely wife for hosting this event at your fantastic restaurant. Next time I come, I need you.
She's from Green Lucille, not Penasco.
You
see that?
She's my prima and my student.
Well, here's the deal. My family's from Romeroville, so the likelihood that we're all cousins, you look too tall to be my cousin. We'll have to figure that out. So thank you very much. So I got this question already when I came in. So the number one question that I get is, why would you leave Congress? And I want to thank you. Everybody who thanks me every day for the work that I do in Congress, really it's the other way around. I have a unique and wonderful opportunity to represent my friends and neighbors, my colleagues and constituents, in what I think is one of the most important jobs, particularly in this environment. With the Trump administration, you need fair, honest, productive representation. But here's what I know. That Congress is really deadlocked in very partisan efforts and is not moving. Even Republicans who are not with Trump on a variety of issues are unable to navigate and govern anymore. And particularly for governors, and I mean no disrespect, you want qualified governors who end up as senators and vice presidents and presidents. It's a very important training ground, but one of the problems is you lose focus. You're not paying attention to the issues that are local, that make a difference in the success of your state. So how about a governor that leaves Washington, D.C. and comes back home to stay home and be part of the solutions that make a difference for everyday New Mexicans? And while you do that, how about a governor that has those federal relationships so that we continue to have federal partnerships, so that we're making a difference on the issues that we really need? It's not one or the other. It's being able to leverage both in the most successful manner. That's what turns the tide. And if it's if we're talking about immigration or the environment or healthcare, you need governors. States are gonna be the groundbreaking work in this country for solving those issues. So this is where it happens. So that's why I'm coming home. And I feel really good. Thank you, Lori. I feel really good about this election. So this is an election that's only going to be about the economy, because it should be. Because if you care about the environment or healthcare or education, you have to get the economics right here. And I've never seen anything so wrong in my life. So let's just deal with the easy things that we can do right off the bat. Day one. I don't even need the legislature, and that's not to disrespect the legislature. I value them. We want that legislative branch. But do you ever wonder, you hear the debate, Colorado, Arizona, Nevada, Texas, Utah, any state near us doing better than we are, what's going wrong in New Mexico? Well, here's one thing. They're taking all your money. At least $300 million leaves the state of New Mexico to those states and their contractors. The number one return on our investments economically is investing in ourselves. How many business owners in the crowd, right? Shouldn't your businesses have the benefit of that investment to grow and hire more New Mexicans? Of course they should. And when we do that, what happens to our tax base? It grows. What happens to your opportunities in education? Well, you make them more meaningful. Now you've got choices about hiring and paying teachers and making a difference in each of the classrooms. So let's start with that. New Mexico money needs to be here. Let's invest in ourselves. That's one. Two, the economic department is sitting on economic development money. How? On God's green earth, when we have the worst economy and some of the highest unemployment in the country, do you have a department whose job it is to create public-private partnerships, that they're sitting on your resources, failing to do that? Unacceptable. We're going to have a robust economic development department. And you know what else? They're going to have a partnership with a tourism department. So we're very clear. Taos is home to a World Heritage Site, the Taos Pueblo. There's only 1,023 of those in the entire world. One of them's in our backyard. New Mexico has 3. There's only 23 in the United States. 3 are here. 2 are being considered. Cumbres Toltec Railroad and White Sands. Imagine if you have 5 World Heritage Sites. Just to talk about how beautiful and valuable this state is. People want to come, and they want to come beyond Santa Fe. Let's get them into the rural communities and invest those dollars. And where does that money go? Right back to those local communities. All right? How about this? How about making sure that we have a legislative plan that helps legislators make sure there's safeguards and accountability, and let's open up the permanent fund and reinvest in ourselves. And I have 2 ideas about that. Look, the Constitution requires those investments to go to education. Good. That's got to be a priority. We're never going to be able to hold economic success unless we do something about our own educational investments. They are insufficient to meet the needs of New Mexico children and families. We are disrespecting and disvaluing public education and our educators. It's unfair. Do you know how much a teacher's aide makes in New Mexico? $12,000, and they just got a raise. All right? And you know who does that work? Women do that work. And you know why teachers don't make very much money? Because back when largely, we've got a male teacher, thank you very much for being here. The reason you had that economic disparity in salaries in public education, because housewives were being devalued and working as teachers. And it was never intended in the minds of policymakers, right, that this was a career. If we care about kids, we do, we care about the future of this state, and we do, then we have to put investments in the places where they'll give us the greatest return, investing in our own economy and investing in education. And we've got to respect the men and women who go to a great deal of effort to get the required education and training to be world-class educators in public education, and then we don't pay them enough to stay off safety net benefits in this state. And it's outrageous. So you want to respect education, respect the very people who dedicate their careers and lives to making a difference for New Mexico families. So we're going to do that. We're going to do that. We do that by using the permanent fund. And what if, at the same time, you could get permanent fund money to higher education, but as a pass-through? All right, so follow my idea. So we give it to our universities. We ask them to get it out to small businesses, and then we grow the economy. Then a formula of that money comes right back in to education. So we're continuing to think about ways to have funds for the future. I think there are so many ways to leverage in this state that we have not yet even talked about, because our own legislature is becoming very divided on these issues. We're a state, 1.8 million people. If any state can get it right and put everybody back together, we can. We can lead the nation in successful public-private partnerships that are making a difference in the lives of New Mexico families. And so I see all of these incredible opportunities. How about another one that doesn't require legislative work that you could do on day one? You know, all of the retirement funds and all the permanent funds that we talk about. Now, I don't want to minimize that you can't be reckless and that there are real important safeguards. Boy, since the days of saving and loans failures, we are very clear, maybe not as clear in Congress anymore, about Wall Street safeguards. I'm embarrassed to tell you now that they're working to repeal Dodd-Frank, but there are real safeguards. Governors have very strict rules about how you invest those funds, right? So there's a return on your investment. Can you guess which state is among the worst of those investors in the country? New Mexico. And that's ridiculous. Be in the middle. Strive to be a little bit above. We don't have to be reckless. We don't need a governor or a government that would not follow the rules, but for goodness sake, at least meet the industry standards, because when you don't, where do you think the return on those investments go? They go back to our economy. So we are throwing away resources that we have readily available. Now, I know I don't need to introduce Alan Weber. I didn't introduce him at the very beginning. He's standing right back there. I'm a big fan of Alan Weber's. Anybody who knows him, who's worked with him, who's benefited from his ideas. Here's a guy who runs for governor. Does he stop after an election? This is what we need in New Mexico. No. He's been on the road here and across the country and internationally talking about economic success, talking about ways to make sure that you're clear about an economic agenda, about a 50 or 100-year plan, about tourism, environment, water. All of these are economic engines, education. We think about them sometimes in terms about protection and justice and equality and fairness. You have to, but they are all economic indicators. And if you want to deal with persistent poverty, you got to deal with those economic indicators. Well, I'm lucky to have Mr. Weber's endorsement, and guess what? We're going to work together on that sustainable economic plan, which includes investing in infrastructure and making very clear that protecting the environment means we grow alternative green energy investments in this state. And how many of you know this? Do you know where all the major power grids for the United States come together? Clovis, New Mexico. If any state can get energy onto the grids, my God, how come we're not doing that? It's right in our own backyards. Who has the best opportunity in wind and solar? We do. You don't think when I was in China I said, you can't undervalue us on solar components anymore, and if you want to clean up your environment, you're going to have to buy solar energy from New Mexico, right? That's what we want. That's what we need. We can really make a difference. The last three things about the economy. So Alan got to hear me say this. I kept saying, wouldn't it be great if while you have a congresswoman who's running for governor, that she was actually making a difference in some of the areas that would grow our economy in ways that are green and meaningful and productive and supportive, like, for example, don't you think the labs who can't succeed in New Mexico if our economy is poor because they can't recruit scientists, they can't get their spouses jobs, their spouses and families have real concerns about education investments, they won't come, right? We have 7,000 between the two labs eligible individuals who can retire in the next few years. So we got to deal with this issue, all right? So in the contract for Sandia, I won language that makes their investment in our own economy a priority and a performance measure. That means they got to give the local contractors more than they have, and they have to make a difference in the economy. If our economy is failing, their national security work is failing. They have to be part of the solution. They spent $1 million less last year. Unacceptable in New Mexico. If they need parts for the work that they're doing, why are they giving that money to Kansas? Got to be here. You're here. We need you. You need us. We're a partnership. I won that. I also said we don't do tech transfer here in a meaningful way. You know why? Because the federal government owns all the intellectual property. Unlike universities where they share it with their faculty members, here the government keeps it. Wouldn't it be great if you had a congresswoman who could get the federal law changed so that the federal government can release some of that intellectual property so that private investors will invest in that tech so those tech companies can grow in New Mexico? Did it! So now the Department of Defense, just 2 weeks ago, I won that legislation. So even though Congress is defunct and not working together, I've never forgotten that every single day I got to be thinking about ways to make Congress deliver to you. So I will end with this. I can use that same energy and expertise, that passion. I think about the same things that you do. My 2-year-old granddaughter, my 30 and 32-year-old daughters. I think about their lives, their careers, their opportunities in New Mexico. Their success means all of us succeed. And the only way that we do that is if I've convinced you today that I will bring that energy and compassion and hard work. Somebody told me today I'm like a dog with a bone. It's true. I never let go. I spent 5 years fighting with the federal government on behavioral health. All right? In a Democrat and then a Republican administration. I never stopped fighting. I won that investigation. And now I want, when that investigation, it starts probably in October, and when it ends, I want restitution from the federal government for all of the lives and all of the issues that have been affected here, because we canceled 100% of our behavioral health contracts, 100%. And the federal government did not hold our governor accountable, right? It's outrageous, because you know what? Medicaid and Medicare law require mental health parity. And she didn't have to do it. Only state in the nation. Now, Martin Heinrich, to his credit, introduced legislation that I'm on so that no governor anywhere in the United States can ever do that again. But I also want justice for families and providers in New Mexico, and I expect the federal government to do that. So that's my commitment. No issue too small, no issue too big to tackle. The courage to act on your convictions, and a governor that understands the strength of the whole state means that Taos has to succeed. And Penasco has to succeed. Rio Monge's got to succeed. And Taos Pueblo's got to succeed. And we all have to work together. This cannot be an I-25 corridor economic effort. This has to be a rural New Mexico, statewide economic effort. And I believe unequivocally that not only can we turn the state around, I think we can create a new dynamic where people are looking to us for the best behavioral health investments, the very best healthcare options, the very best healthcare system, the world-class public education system that every politician talks about, that we show them that we're doing it right here, right now. And when I was running aging, we were last in the country on home and community-based services, which is a fancy way of just respecting and providing dignity back to elders and their families, right? You can stay at home, you can make your own decisions. We'll support you to do that. And in 8 years, one state administration, one governor, I left it, we were #1 in the country. And we're often tied with Oregon for that first place, but first place. You know how we're on every bad list? We proved together we could be #1. And today, it's all gone. It's all stripped away. Right, so the quality of care is gone, the number of providers are gone, there's not enough money in home and community services, there's not enough money in Indian country for elders. It all went away. I want to build New Mexico back, and then I want to take it to the next step. So let's build a better future together. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come to Taos and for waiting for me today. You guys are awesome. Let's keep winning. Oh, terrific. The town manager is here. Come on up, Rick.
No, you're on stage. Stay there. The mayor couldn't be here today, but he's a big fan. So he asked on behalf of the town that we give this proclamation to you, and I'll try to read it fast. But for those of you that haven't seen all the credentials of our candidate here, maybe this will give you an idea. Let it be known that the town of Taos does declare the following. Whereas Michelle Lujan Grisham has served as a congressional representative for the diverse constituency of the state of New Mexico since January 3rd, 2013. Whereas her tenure, Congresswoman Lujan Grisham has notably served on numerous committees and caucuses that represent the interests of the people of New Mexico, including the House Committee on Agriculture, the House Committee on the Budget, Campaign Finance Reform Caucus, Congressional Caucus on Women's Issues, Congressional Native American Caucus, Congressional LGBT Equality Caucus, House Science and National Labs Caucus, the Historic Preservation Caucus, House Rural Broadband Caucus, along with 30 other assignments, including such leadership positions as Chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. And whereas Congresswoman Lujan Grisham has taken strong protective positions for New Mexicans on such critical areas as healthcare, the environment, freedom of the press, voting rights, civil rights, infrastructure, and education, reflecting the values of New Mexicans. And whereas Congresswoman Lujan Grisham has also advocated for reforming the student loan program, the regulation of greenhouse gas emissions, the preservation of the Affordable Care Act, co-sponsored legislation to preserve the SNAP program, helped pass the USA Freedom Act providing protection of privacy, and sponsored the Hope for Alzheimer's Act, all programs critical to the lives of New Mexicans and their families. Therefore be it resolved that the town of Taos does hereby recognize and honor the exemplary representation of Congresswoman Michelle Lujan Grisham on behalf of the residents of the state of New Mexico and the town of Taos. And thank you for your The mayor asked me to do one more thing for you when he ran, and people said, we need politicians that roll up their sleeves and put on their work gloves and do the job. So he asked me to give you a pair of brand new work gloves from his sawmill. Sure.
So thank you, Rick. The reason is tomorrow I'm working on 2 farms in northern New Mexico, and my staff, I love them and they do good work, and they wanted me to visit these farms. And I said, so we're talking about how hard it is to do a farm, how hard that work is, how we can't hire enough people to do it because it's the toughest work there is. So from sun up to sundown tomorrow, I'm doing all of the work. So I'm hoeing, weeding, mucking stalls, harvesting, replanting stuff that we're for fall crops, and doing whatever work everybody else is doing. And I didn't have any work gloves. So the mayor has provided me with these work gloves. We went to high school together, although I'm much younger than Dan Baroni. And we're celebrating our 40-year high school reunion this September in Santa Fe. Go Horsemen. Thank you for the proclamation, and I really need these work gloves for tomorrow. I'm going to mill around, so you guys can ask me questions. I'm not leaving right away, but I want to thank you for coming to say hello to me, and for people who have not met me before, it means a lot to me that you would take time today to say hello and to participate in making sure we have, I hope, the best governor ever in the state of New Mexico. Thank you.